Good evening, ladies. Hyperliquid is the biggest opportunity in crypto in 2025, in my opinion. In today's video, I'm going to go through exactly why I'm buying Hyperliquid with everything I can over the next few months and how exactly you can farm the second airdrop. And if you remember, the first airdrop was the biggest airdrop in crypto history. The second airdrop won't be as big, but as you can see from this chart, they still have a fair bit of Hyperliquid to give out. So if you want to find out, like, I know it's very risky, or like it seems quite risky to be buying crypto at the moment with things looking a bit shaky, things looking a bit uncertain in the macro environment. Potentially the cycle is over for a couple of years, who knows? So in those kind of times when you're a bit more hesitant to invest fresh fiat into the crypto space, that's potentially a good time to be farming protocols that have airdrops coming up. And I think Hyperliquid, although the airdrop isn't going to be as crazy as the first one, because a lot of people are using it now and a lot of people are aware of Hyperliquid now, it's still definitely going to be one worth farming, in my opinion. So first, let's talk about Hyperliquid a bit further. So if you remember back in 2023, if you've been a subscriber of mine or saw my videos back then, basically all of them were talking about Solana. Solana was in the $20 range, $30 range, and it was there for a few months. Even dropped as low as $8, but at that point that was too early for, you know, the thesis to really be playing out. But once it started to take off, Solana was just such an obvious bet. Now I don't know if Hyperliquid has bottomed yet. It could get into the single digits again, like $8 range, but I think potentially if Hyperliquid got into that $8 range, that would be similar to Solana at $8, the kind of opportunity that we'd be looking at that point. During that time when Solana started to take off, then when it went from 20 to 30 to 50 to 70 to 100, basically everyone was asking me, what's the next Solana? What's the next Solana? And although I was like, I don't really know, potentially, like, there's a couple of coins that could be the next Solana. It's not until now that I really think there is an opportunity like Solana again in the crypto space, and that of course is Hyperliquid. Back then, like, Solana was not considered a major. Most people kind of writ it off. They didn't really, like, no one really cared about it. But at that time I was saying, in the future, like at that time, people only talked about majors. They only talked about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and everything else is speculation. They're the only two safe assets in crypto. At that time I was saying, in the future, it's going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. That's the way people are going to talk about the majors or the safe plays in crypto, or like the main plays in crypto. I was telling people that at the time, and that seemed totally crazy. And now everyone is saying, yeah, it's Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. In a year's time, I think people will be saying Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and Hyperliquid, and potentially just Bitcoin, Sol, and Hype. And we'll see if Ethereum lasts that long. Okay, so why do I think that's going to happen? What are the similarities between Solana at $20 and Hyperliquid at $12 or $13, wherever it is now? At that time, the fundamentals for Solana were looking amazing. It was actually pre-fundamentals. It was just kind of a theory when it was $20. But once it started getting into the $30 range, $50 range, the fundamentals for Solana looked really strong. Like, it had the most daily active addresses, or it's starting to have, it actually didn't have the most at that time, but the growth in daily active addresses, the growth in the amount of transactions, the growth in the revenue. If you were able to look out into the future, you could see Solana was absolutely growing like crazy. And now Solana, it actually does have the highest revenue per chain, as we can see, number 1, and number 2 is Ethereum, and number 3, even now on a fundamental basis, Hyperliquid has the third most revenue of any layer 1 or any chain, which is kind of insane when you think about it. And it's not like Hyperliquid is in steady state like Ethereum is. Like, Ethereum's fees are actually dropping. Solana's potentially dropping in the short term, but I do think long term Solana is still my biggest bag, and I don't think Solana's fees are going to decrease. They're going to continue increasing, but I think Hyperliquid's fees are going to increase at a higher growth rate. So, you know, it's all investing, like long-term investing is all about being able to predict what's going to happen in the future. And the way to actually make money in investing is not looking at current fundamentals and saying, oh, this is making a lot of revenue now, this is doing this XYZ and now. It's all about, oh, what's going to have good fundamentals in the future, because you need to front run the investments you need to front run those people who are looking at current fundamentals. So it's all about growth. So right now the fundamentals for Hyperliquid, which I'll show you, are already really, really strong. But we need to see, is it still growing? Is it going to continue to grow? What are the potential growth factors for Hyperliquid on top of its current fundamentals? So this is the volume, the perp volume of Hyperliquid in comparisons to Binance and Bybit. And right now it's at 20% the perp volume of Binance, and did a 400% gain over the last 6 months against Binance in terms of perp volume. Now, if we put a more rational, or not rational, but like a slower growth rate over the next few years, you can see eventually it's going to get to 50% of Binance. And we already see that Binance and OKX are getting very, very worried about Hyperliquid. The whole drama with the HLP vault, which you might have seen, basically, you can skip forward if you already know what happened. But an attacker went after the HLP vault. He opened a massive short on Jelly, which is like a really low cap meme coin. He bought a load of spot on Solana and then basically liquidated himself on Hyperliquid by withdrawing all his collateral, which basically left the HLP vault with a really negative, like a really bad trade. So basically that's how the HLP vault works, that it takes on the investments of liquidations, something like that. There are rumors that this was done by Binance, but the actual funny thing is Binance went ahead and listed Jelly. So it was like 100% an attack on Hyperliquid. They were trying to make Hyperliquid lose money by listing Jelly because they know that should pump the price. So they're trying to liquidate the why can't I say that? The HLP vault. So Binance are extremely worried about Hyperliquid because they know DEX volume versus SEX volume is closing in on each other, and DEXs are in a growth phase, SEXs are potentially in a decline phase, and Hyperliquid could eventually take over Binance. Like, that's what the dream is. And Binance is the most profitable company, the biggest company in the entire crypto space. Like, basically all the money that's made in crypto, like most of it is from like trading platforms, and Binance is the biggest one by a long shot. It's massive, and Hyperliquid is going after that. So what makes Hyperliquid better than Binance for a user? Well, it's much cheaper. So it's 2.5 basis points per dollar of volume. So that's way less than Binance takes from their users. And on top of that, the fees that are charged to the users on the platform, a lot of that is given to I think it's 50% is given to the assistance fund, which goes and buys back Hyperliquid on the open market. So there's like a passive bid for Hyperliquid. So the more people are using Hyperliquid and the lower the price goes, like the more hype that they're actually getting back. So there is like out of the billions and millions of tokens in the crypto space and the millions of blockchains, Hyperliquid is one of the ones that has an actual like fundamental value in the fact that the revenue it's generating is actually going back to buying back the tokens, if you didn't realize that. So Hyperliquid started out as a perp DEX, so trading perpetual futures, but now are starting to add spot to the platform. So now you can actually deposit Bitcoin into Hyperliquid, and the whole idea with Hyperliquid and the Hyperliquid EVM, like the actual chain that's just launched as well, which we'll talk about, is that all the liquidity for the perps, for the spot, for the EVM, that can all like be used together. So for example, you will be able to use your Bitcoin, like your spot Bitcoin, as collateral for a perp trade. Like, it's all kind of on the same chain in a way. So it's like, it's all liquid together, if you kind of get me. The other nice thing that this will enable is a stablecoin, which is obviously one of the biggest, if not the biggest use case, apart from Bitcoin, of crypto is stablecoins at the moment. So, for example, how they would do that, create a delta neutral stable coin, it's very similar to Athena. So if you know how Athena works, basically it shorts Ethereum and holds spot Ethereum. So it shorts Ethereum on a perp because most people are longing Ethereum. So they're basically getting that 10%, what's it called? Funding, because most people are paying to long Ethereum on a perp. So they're taking that funding by shorting it, taking the other side of that and holding Ethereum. So it's basically, it's delta neutral because they're shorting the same amount of Ethereum that they're holding spot. Hyperliquid could do something similar and basically have a natively yielding stable coin, but instead of having to do the funding on a centralized exchange, it's all within Hyperliquid on like a decentralized platform. So no shadiness going on, no need to trust counterparties. That's kind of the far out idea. Like at the moment, Hyperliquid isn't crazy decentralized. It's much more decentralized than a centralized exchange though. It's much more centralized than Binance. You can see all the orders, you can see all the transaction history, you can see the HLP. You can just go into the HLP vault and see all the trades that HLP is holding. So it's much more transparent, although there's only 16 validators at the moment. So it's not like massively decentralized like Ethereum or Solana yet. So it's getting there over time. So the three biggest market caps in cryptos are layer ones, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. They're all like tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, if not trillions, as well as centralized exchanges, also in the tens of billions, Binance, Coinbase, potentially even hundreds of billions, and stable coins, also in the tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions. Hyperliquid is going after all three in one platform, in one coin. So, you know, that's just something to think about. What's the other advantage of trading on Hyperliquid? You don't need to trust a centralized exchange. So when you send your money into a centralized exchange to trade with, you don't retain control over that money anymore. The centralized exchange holds it. It's not in your wallet anymore. It's on the books of Binance or Coinbase or whatever. However, on Hyperliquid, it's actually still within your wallet. So you're trading with your own money. Like when you put on a trade, your wallet still retains the Hyperliquid, or still retains the Bitcoin. It's in your wallet. It's not, you don't have to, there's less counterparty risk. Obviously there's other drawbacks. Maybe you could get yourself hacked or blah, 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 but it's much more trustworthy. It's much more reliable. Okay, so I'll leave this article from Synchrony. So that's Ryan Watkins' company, but they did a big report on Hyperliquid. And this is kind of the valuations that they would give to each segment. All right, so this chart is from Synchrony, or these four charts are from Synchrony. So the one on the top left is showing the amount of revenue that Hyperliquid could make from their spot volume. The one on the top right is the amount of revenue that they can make from their perps platform. So we can just go straight into the middle there. The middle one on the top left would be $171 million per year. The one on the top right in the middle would be $1.2 billion of revenue. So 171 million for the spot plus 1.2 billion for the perps. That would be a revenue of 1.4 billion roughly. If you want to put a multiple on it, maybe a 30x multiple, that's going to be $5 billion market cap plus $36 billion of market cap. So that's the two on the bottom. So the multiple, or the valuation of the spot platform would be $5 billion. If we're going for the middle of a multiple of 30 plus multiplied by $171 million of revenue, you get $5 billion per year. Sorry, not $5 billion per year. You get $5 billion of market cap plus the one in the middle again, because we don't want to go, too crazy here, but the one in the middle, that's what they're most likely saying is going to be the multiple and the amount of revenue that they will earn is 36 billion. So 5 billion plus 36 billion. They're estimating it should be worth $40 billion. Right now, Hyperliquid is $13 billion. And obviously, we could put a 50x multiple in a crazy time, and we could be earning a lot more fees, and that will get us up to $180 billion in the maximum case scenario. So somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 billion, all the way up to $180 billion market cap, Right now it's $13 billion. This doesn't include the spot. This doesn't include the EVM. This is just perps and spot, like a perps and spot DEX combined on a fundamental basis. So keep that in mind. So there's plenty of room to run for Hyperliquid on a fundamentals basis. So that's just the perps and the spot platform. That's like basically what a centralized exchange does, except we're building it in a decentralized manner with like lightning fast speeds and, you know, very good execution on Hyperliquid. It's really easy, really nice chain to use. It just works very, very well. That's just like the main, but that's just two aspects of what Hyperliquid is trying to be. Next, we have the layer 1, which is just launched recently. We're going to show you how to farm that. Well, it's still farming Hyperliquid like the Hype token. We're going to show you how to use the layer 1 and different products that you can use on the layer 1, which I think will be the best way to farm the next Hyperliquid airdrop. So Ryan Watkins, like we saw, thinks that the perps plus spot volume should be like a market cap of like 50 billion just for those two things by themselves. But then once you add on a layer 1, like a layer 1 premium like Solana has or Ethereum has, like that's tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of potentiality. So this is, and then the next, but as we know, layer 1s tend to have like the highest market caps of all cryptos, and Hyperliquid is now its own layer 1. It's launched its own EVM. So we know Solana has a market cap of 50 billion or something, Ethereum in the hundreds of billions as well, and has been in like almost $500 billion before. So if you add that onto the 50 billion that Hyperliquid with just the perps platform and just the spot platform, if you also mark it up as a layer 1, that's another probably doubling of its current market cap, or that's probably another doubling on that market cap again. And the final opportunity for Hyperliquid, this is like pie in the sky, way down the road kind of stuff, but it's a potentiality. Tokenization of all assets on Hyperliquid, on one of the best places to trade. This is kind of what Solana is also going for. So I think Hyperliquid and Solana are competing quite a lot to aggregate liquidity and become like the everything. Like Solana's mission and Solana's vision was always to be the NASDAQ on the blockchain, and being able to trade real world assets really with high liquidity and really good execution all across the world. So Hyperliquid and Solana are also, like Hyperliquid's also going for that aim, potentially far down the road, where you're going to be able to trade real world assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, whatever the fuck you want, can be exchanged once it's tokenized on Hyperliquid or on Solana. And that opportunity is just like mind-mentally huge. That would be like NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, like the world trading center in a decentralized blockchain. Like, I'm not even going to count that into my valuation models because, you know, it's probably way too early to be thinking about that, but it is a possibility, and that's kind of what Solana is going for, as well as Hyperliquid. And Ryan Watkins or Synchrony values that at like 500 billion, so a 50x in just for that from Hyperliquid's current valuation, or like 40x or something. So just, you know, there are big dreams with Hyperliquid. Now, I'm not really going to give that a huge amount of weight just yet until I see a bit of tokenization, but it is 100% possible, and I think they're already working on this. They already have like most of the top cryptos on Hyperliquid. Eventually they're going to start bringing on a lot of stocks, and the same on Solana. There's already been tokenization of, you know, bonds and stocks on Solana in different apps, but it's still very, very early as well. And I'm sure Hyperliquid, someone's building this on Hyperliquid already, but you know, there's probably a lot of regulation that goes on to that as well. All right, let's move on. Oh, and another thing that Hyperliquid has just released is these staking tiers. So this is extremely bullish, because if you want to like trade a lot of volume on Hyperliquid, there is now a big incentive to actually stake Hyperliquid, because you actually get a massive discount on the fees. So if you're trading a lot of volume, like, fees really add up. And if you want to trade on Binance, those fees are going to be a lot of money. If you're trading millions and millions, like market makers are, or like big individual players, those fees add up a lot. Or even as a trader yourself, you probably don't notice it that much, but those fees can add up if you're trading a lot, doing a lot of volume. So a good way to reduce your fees is to own a lot of Hyperliquid and have it staked. You can get up to 40% off those fees. All right, so I know this has been a long video, but now let's talk about how to actually farm the next Hyperliquid airdrop. If you have no more cash, which I'm sure potentially some of you have used up all your cash, or you've lost so much money that you just want to farm this and not buy Hyperliquid directly, so you don't want to add a lot of risk to your portfolio right now. I don't think Hyperliquid is one of the lesser risky coins in my opinion, because it has such strong fundamentals, but it can keep going down. So even if you wanted to remain delta neutral, you can still farm it. I'll tell you how. You would buy a lot of spot Hyperliquid, so you deposit $1,000 into Hyperliquid, buy that much Hyperliquid, and then deposit another $1,000 and short Hyperliquid. So now you're delta neutral on Hyperliquid. You're also farming Hyperliquid by using perps, and now you have $1,000 worth of Hyperliquid that you can bring onto the Hyperliquid EVM and start using in platforms there. So that's if you did want to be delta neutral. I'm happy to hold Hyperliquid. I want to accumulate as much as I can over the next few months while we're in a bear market. So the first Hyperliquid airdrop, they never told us, or they never shared how the point system worked, or like it was changing from week to week how to earn points. But the main ways were to use the perp decks, and when spot came out, to use that spot feature. So it's basically like who's doing the most volume, etc, etc. Now I do still think that's worth doing. Like if you're going to trade, you might as well trade on Hyperliquid because you're farming an airdrop. But I do think they will put higher value for people who are farming or who are using the actual Hyperliquid EVM chain. So yes, still use Hyperliquid to trade perps. Yes, definitely spot is definitely a newer aspect that they've brought onto Hyperliquid. So if you're going to say you want to buy some Bitcoin, what you should do, instead of buying it on Coinbase, deposit USDC into Hyperliquid and buy the Bitcoin on Hyperliquid. So then you're getting spot volume, and then hold your bit of Bitcoin there, for example. Or if you want to do a bit of spot trading, you want to think Bitcoin's going to shoot up over the next few days, you can buy a little Bitcoin spot here and sell it in a few days. You can do a bit of spot trading on Bitcoin. They also just brought Ethereum, and I think Solana is going to come very soon on Hyperliquid for spot trading. So definitely be using the spot functions. Even deposit just a little bit of Ethereum or deposit a little bit of Bitcoin spot onto Hyperliquid. I think that would be good. Now, do I think the Hyperliquid airdrop is going to be anytime soon? I'd say it's probably going to be in 2025, but it's not going to be, probably not until the later half of 2025. So we're just putting in the work during the bear market, be able to profit further down the line when hopefully the markets are back a bit. The other thing that you can do as well, if you want, is to have have a good portion of your hype staked. So you can stake it natively in the Hyperliquid app. Just go to the staking tab and stake some Hyperliquid there. Probably will help a little bit to your airdrop, and you get the reduced fees. Now at the moment we've all been waiting for how to use the Hyperliquid EVM. So the first thing you're going to need to do, you click this little transfer to EVM button. So that will transfer, let's say you want to transfer 10 hype, 100 hype, 1000 hype over to the EVM. So you just click that, you sign the transaction, and now you have some hype on the Hyperliquid EVM, and that's what it essentially is using for gas. So leave a little bit on the app, leave a little bit staking as well, and yeah, I deposit whatever you feel comfortable with into the EVM. The next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to add the chain to MetaMask or to Rabbi wallet, whichever wallet that you have, like whichever EVM wallet that you have. The easiest way to do that is to go to Chainlist, and I'll leave that linked in the description. Everything will be linked in the description, and yeah, please use the links in the description if you wouldn't mind, because some of them are referral links, especially the one for Hyperliquid. That would be get me an extra 10 cents or something. So that would be sound if you didn't, if you are learning a little bit from this video. I'd appreciate that. So go to chain list, search for Hyper, and then you can just click add to MetaMask on chain list, and then you'll see there Hyper EVM. Add that to MetaMask, and then you're set up. If you can't do that, you can go to settings, add the custom network, and I'll leave the instructions to do it manually in the description. So we want to keep this easy. I'm going to give you a lot of options of things you can do, but you don't have to get too crazy. I think it's just like, it doesn't matter which ones you do necessarily, but just hit a few of them the odd time. The first, so I presume now you're going to have a little bit of Hyperliquid in your MetaMask wallet. So the first thing I would do is I would stake some of that Hyperliquid. There's a couple of options here. I'll link them all in the description again. Stake type, that's going to give you ST Hype. Now you have a liquid stake type. You can use that in DeFi, and you have that still in your wallet. So it's not natively staked. You have like a liquid stake version of Hyperliquid that you don't have to wait 7 days to unstake it or anything. You can just trade in and out of it on a DEX, or you can unstake it directly on the stake type website. The next platform that I would try and use, but it's probably full, so it's full when I checked, but Hyperlend is basically like an Aave clone, so you know it's going to be, the code is strong because it's basically a fork of Aave. So Hyperlend X, so if you go onto there using my referral link, and if there is space to lend a bit of hype and withdraw, like borrow against it, it's just a borrow lend platform, but it's the top one at the moment and it's full. So hopefully when you're looking at it, they've opened up the limits again, so you can add a bit of hype and you can withdraw a bit of, I think, staked hype or wrapped hype or something. So obviously this is all extremely new. You're still really early to using the Hyperliquid EVM. There's very few people on it yet, and the TVL, I think it's only like 400 million or 500 million, like $500 million. So there's not a huge amount of competition going for the second airdrop, in my opinion, so that's good to know. The next platform is basically a Uniswap clone, and it's called Hyperswap. And there I just, like, you just kind of want to use as much as you can on the EVM. Here I just swapped some Hyperliquid into Buddy, and Buddy is the first EVM meme coin on the EVM for Hyperliquid. So, and there's Per, which is like a meme coin that was on the native application, but Buddy was the first, or like the biggest meme coin on the EVM, like the first EVM meme coin. And that's a meme about all right buddy, which is, you know, something all the Hyperliquid guys say. So I bought a little bit of that just to get a bit of volume on the EVM. So the next thing I did is I went to Kittenswap. So here it actually allows you, it's another DEX, but you can actually LP on this. So I just LP'd Per, which is one of the meme coins. So I LP'd Per against wrapped Hyperliquid. So, and you can actually wrap Hyperliquid on Kittenswap just there, and you'll get W Hype. And I just provided liquidity for wrapped Hype versus Per, because I think they'll hopefully perform somewhere similar. And basically what I'm trying to do here is farm and, you know, deposit liquidity in different places and try out different things. Keeping it quite simple for now. I don't want to get too complicated with it, but just a few options. You don't have to do them all. Just do whatever you want to do. If you don't like LPing, don't LP. If you don't want to buy meme coins, don't buy meme coins. If you don't want to natively stake, well, I'd say you might as well just get a bit of liquid stake, because that's very simple and low risk. But the other things, you know, might be a bit complex for you, so just do whatever you want. The next thing you can do is go to Harmonics, and this is basically, you can enter into these vaults and they'll try and earn you some APY. So you can deposit USDC, you can deposit Bitcoin, and basically they have different strategies that are going to get APY. Again, we're not really so interested in the APY, a nice little bonus, but probably not worth the risk if it was just for the APY, but we're farming the airdrop as well on top of this, so probably worth it in that case. So I'll leave the link for Harmonics as well in the description that you can see there. Another thing you can do is you can buy NFTs on drip.trade. The biggest NFT is these Hippio NFTs, and they are another Milady derivative. They might be, I've gotten so wrecked, as you can see, from NFTs over the years. Still have that. Well, actually, I sold that Mutant Ape, but I left it there as a badge of shame. So I'm not buying any NFTs. Well, I don't want to put large capital into NFTs, but if I was, potentially I will down the road. But I do think Hippio is the main one, and there is rumors that they always get good airdrops in the Hyperliquid ecosystem. So if you're very bullish on Hyperliquid, that's probably one to look out for. Or you can buy some of the cheaper ones if you want to just use the platform and, you know, farm the airdrop more. Probably they're going to reward people who have NFTs or have tried out the NFT platform. But I don't think that's really what Hyperliquid is for, trading NFTs. So I don't know. That's why I wasn't bothered buying one of these Milady derivatives. The last one, this has been around for a while, is pvp.trade. So this is just a little Telegram bot that you can trade over Hyperliquid using this Telegram bot. So instead of having to open your computer, you can just trade on your phone very easily. There's plenty of more different applications, but they're just the ones I'm using for the moment. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video on some of the other ones that are interesting, but for the moment, I think that's enough to get you going and start farming this airdrop. One of the biggest protocols of crypto coming up in the next couple of years, in my opinion. Hyperliquid, super bullish on it. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, hopefully we'll be looking back in a year's time, or a couple of years time, or a couple of months time. Who knows how long this bear market is going to last. It's very confusing at the moment, but looking at projects or looking at ecosystems that are in massive growth phases that have really good, strong fundamentals, probably the safest place to be paying attention to. And of course, that is Hyperliquid, in my opinion, not financial advice, blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Cheers.